everybody, whoever wants to have a World Cup at home, they have to give out, I think, $10,000 for the winner, 10 or 11, something like that, between 10,000 for the winner. And so then it goes down 5,000 for second, 2,500 for third. And you can imagine like the ninth place is getting like $150.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Roe Show. This week we have professional halfpipe snowboarder André Höflich. He is a member of the Snowboard Germany's national team and gives us an insight to snowboarding communities. Snowboarding, being much more freestyle in nature, has different cultural views about their coaching and training methods. André and I discuss his perspective on athletes and coaching relationships, what it takes to get sponsorship, and discusses how the economic market of snowboarding has risen and fallen over the last 20 years. If you're looking for an inside perspective on a historical freestyle community, this episode's for you. Okay guys, let's go. André Höflich, how are you, André? Thank you for getting onto our show. It's great to have you.
Hey Greg, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to about like an hour of talking technical stuff and having fun together and showing the people what we're doing together.
That sounds good. We're not just going to get technical, though. We're going to laugh a little bit because I want to get your thoughts on some funny stuff. I remember you giving me a lot of insights when I was doing my little snowboarding with you guys, doing little front rolls. Have you been practicing your front rolls on the snowboard?
Always, like every time I fail, I'm practicing those front rolls, definitely.
Yeah, man, I fail all the time. I did a flat back with 360 flat once, bang, right on my back at the bottom of a mountain. So I get at the end of the mountain, there's where the pool area was. Afterwards, after the hill is closed, and the people would recognize me as the guy that did the 360 flat on his back and slid all.
Yeah, that was a pretty big trick.
That was a huge trick, dude. That was my
biggest
trick ever. It was insane. It was insane.
I'm not sure if they were cheering or crying, but it kind of sounds the same.
I like to tell myself that they were cheering for me, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, let's go with that. But before we get into all that crazy stuff, tell us a little bit about how you got into snowboarding. What was your timeline? How old were you? Give us a little behind the scenes of André.
So I was not like 9 years old when I got my first snowboard for Christmas from my parents. First day after Christmas evening, I went out on the local hill and tried it for the first time. After day 2, I could do turns and stuff, so I really got into it. It was so like frustrating in the first 2 days, but after that, it was just so fun to be able to ride this thing actually. So it went from there, and I went to other local hills, and like the range of the travels for snowboarding, that it just grew and grew and grew, and I got to know some people who brought me to other places, got to know even more people, and it all grew to what I am today. A lot of contacts, a lot of training, also a lot of fun, good times, and I'm still here snowboarding, and that's fun. Started because all the older guys were snowboarding back in the days, and those were the cool kids. We all wanted to be like them, so we started snowboarding actually. And then I realized that I feel so free when I'm snowboarding. Like I can do whatever I want, what I can't really do with skis. You have to be really good with skis to do whatever you want on those things. If you snowboard, you're free. Like you have the ability to move just the way you want it. And yeah, so, and there were like no rules. Like if you play hockey, you have rules. You have to play like, and you can't just punch somebody in the face. You can do a 360 backdrop on the hill like you did. You can just do it. Like you can do anything, everything you want to do, and it doesn't matter because it's freestyle and snowboarding, and as long as you're having fun and you're loving what you're doing right now, everybody will cheer on you, and that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. But then, okay, but you start then competing. So you fall in love with it because it's free. But then you start competing, and I've competed before for a country. That is probably the least free thing you can do. So how did you transition from that freedom of just doing whatever you want to now having to compete on the international stage in front of millions of people at the X Games and stuff like that? How do you transition to that? Is it still free for you, or is it a whole nother thing?
Yeah, so you're right. It's like sometimes you don't feel that free starting for your own country, because there is rules you have to follow. There is you have to reach your goals, to reach sometimes the goals of somebody else. But if you keep on doing what you want, and if you feel like this is what you really want, and then you can follow it, no matter if somebody else wants it too or not. If you want it on your own, like for yourself, you're still doing what you want to do, and so you're still free, and you always have the chance to step out of the game and do something else if you feel like if you don't let control other people your life, and you know that that you're still free and you can still do whatever you want. That makes it easy to start for a country, start for your sponsors or whatever, because you're still doing it for yourself.
So it's all about who you're competing for. You're not competing for your coaches. You're not competing. Shout out to Mickey and Luca, obviously, but you're not competing for them. They don't feel like you are their property. You feel like you are your own property, and they are there simply to help guide you, and that keeps it.
Yeah. So that's when I still feel like freedom. Everybody has tough times someday, and you gotta go through it, and you will come out of it even stronger if you make it.
So when you have your tough times, how do you personally deal with it? What do you have, mental tricks that you play with yourself, little self-talk, music that you, a specific playlist? What do you do when you're having those tough times to mentally get through it?
Sometimes, like when I have those tough times, it's never the same situation, so I don't have any shame I can follow. I just trying to figure out. At first, I gotta figure out if I'm having a tough time right now, or if I'm just lazy. Then, if you found out that you're really having a tough time right now and you're not doing so well, you gotta figure out what is it that threatens me right now, what I'm not knowing of right now. So you trying to ask yourself, like, take a step back and just chill for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, and trying to figure out what this thing is that threatens you and that holds you back. And if you got that, like if you just chill a little, so you can focus on what's on what your heart tells you, like what you're thinking about, actually what the matter is. You can, as soon as you know that and have thought about it enough, you know what to do next to get out of that zone and motivate yourself that this is just a dark valley you're going through, and you've been up there. Why shouldn't you go all the way back up just because you've fallen down once?
Yep, makes a complete sense. Now, in your experience, at least with your tough times, is there any one specific repeating pattern that tends to kind of come up when you think about it? Like, because you're asking, well, how did I get into this valley? What happened? Is there a repeating thing? Is it always maybe like, or generally a external problem, with friends or family? Is it a trick that scares you subconsciously? Is it a new competition coming up that you're not really prepared for? Is there any kind of similarities or patterns here?
Yeah, like sometimes it's social things, like social problems. If you're like in a relationship and it doesn't really work, or if you're having troubles with your family, or some things you always think about what's going on with your family right now, or maybe it's just on you. And if you, yeah, as you said, if you're really looking forward to some competition, but you're not, you haven't done enough training and you're not good enough for right now for the results you want to reach. And that's kind of stuff that can really threat you to go down that valley, and where you're like just sitting there without any light, and you're like, what am I doing here? Where should I go?
Yeah.
And that's some situations that could come. And Yeah, just gotta work your way through and keep motivated.
I guess the first step would be to figure out if it's sport related or if it's outside of the sport. That's the problem. That'd be your first sort of question to yourself: is this a social thing that has nothing to do with the sport itself, and I'm bringing that into the gym with me? Or is it something about the sport that at least cuts your options in half? And then you got to decide, well, have I just been being a little bit lazy? Am I avoiding a trick subconsciously because of my coach isn't there? Is it because all of a sudden we have this new technological equipment and I'm now being more self-conscious about, and this is where you start asking all those types of questions once you've figured out, is it external or internal to the sport?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But first thing you got to figure out is if you have a problem right now. That's because, when you're training or doing competitions and you're not doing well, and you feel kind of weird, but you're like your mind is going in some direction and you're totally on that thing right now, and then you feel like something's not doing right and you're not reaching the goals you want to reach and you're not feeling that well, but you have no idea what's going on. That's like the first step. When you feel like you're not making any progress, something's wrong. Like if you feel perfect and doing progress and everything's good, there's no problem. But if you can't make progress, and if you can't wake up in the morning and be strong and active, and if you feel that, you probably got to have a problem. You got to figure that out before doing more, like before trying to do more progress, because that is actually progress, dealing with the problems you have right now and just work through it until you can take the next step.
And it's a very interesting, coming from a caliber of athlete such as yourself, on the international circuit, the mental game is really important. And I feel like it's really important watching you guys over the last couple of years develop as a team. And I see in your training where, we do a lot of trampoline stuff, obviously, with you guys. But like you've told me, it's once you get out there, the conditions are different. The board feels off. The pipe's always a little bit different. So, I feel like in snowboarding specifically, it really is a mental game. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yes, it's definitely a mental game, totally. Because we are all pretty good snowboarders, like on the top 20. But in the end, it's up to you how you adapt to the current situation, like the weather situation or the pipe conditions, the snow conditions, if it's icy or not, if you have slow snow or fast snow, and that's all stuff that can affect your riding if you let it affect your riding. But that's like 50%. The other 50% is the work you do in your training. Is how should you be able to ride pipe or like in bad snow conditions if you haven't done it before?
Very good.
So you gotta train those situations no matter what. If it's windy, you go out there and do your. If it's snowy, you go out there and do. If it's sunny and warm, perfect conditions, you do your plus extra.
Okay, I like the attitude. Yeah. So you guys are you're slogging through it on a regular basis. Just doesn't matter what the conditions are. Doesn't matter. And then when you get those sunny, perfect days, that's when you're like, okay, let's go. I'm going to try my 14, or I'm going to try this, or whatever it is. And those are the days that you remember, I'm sure.
Sure. And I also remember the worst days that where I actually made the most progress. Like in Kitzsteinhorn in last November, where you were there when you tried my binding last board, right?
Oh, remember? Yeah, I remember. Oh, yeah.
We had so much snow on the pipe, and the pipe dragon couldn't go through because it has just started snowing at 4 a.m. in the morning, and the pipe was unrideable actually, but we still went out there and trained something else, like no tricks but riding technique. And this session actually I made so much progress in my riding technique and in my position in the knees that I was able to adapt to the snow conditions we had in China or in Copper Mountain, where I was able to do my proper final run with the 1260 I've just learned, and other people weren't able to do their stuff. They just sat down, like made a step back because they couldn't handle the snow conditions and made like weaker runs. But I was still able to do my run somehow, because I've just learned how to adapt to those snow conditions, and that was really important, and that's what I meant. If you have conditions, you go out there and do whatever you can do right now, but make every day the best day you've ever had.
That is very cool. I think you're 100% correct. And this is when I first started working with you guys a couple of years back. That was what I noticed, is that I come from a world where everything is pre-planned. I know what I'm going to train every single day. The floor doesn't move. There's no gusts of wind coming in the front door or anything like that on pommel horse. You know, that's not going to happen. Everything is so controlled that it's all just about the angles, and all the adaptation really just doesn't play much of a factor. Besides, you know, a new stadium, like we'll go to a new stadium and they'll be really, really high. Normally our gym's low. You'd be surprised how much of a difference that makes with your perception when you're jumping in a really big open stadium on a little trampoline versus a very closed wall gym on a little trampoline as well. It's all relative. But that's about, I would say, that and just your competition nerves are really the only adaptations that you really need on a regular basis. But for you guys are literally battling the elements every single day you get out there. So you have to have it all up here in the brain, understanding no matter what, I'm going to go out, I'm going to make this training good. If the conditions aren't great, I can still make the best out of it. And that, some people in the traditional world, they don't have that mentality. They don't. Some of them do, obviously, but it's not as relevant for many coaches to teach people to be adaptive to new environments, because we're always in the same environment generally, right? So I think a lot of traditional people can learn from you guys, you know, what's it like when you're not really sure how it's going to go, but you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Very, very, very cool. And
like if you have those current, like if you have those different situations or conditions, and you know, like you've trained it a lot, like all the conditions, and you've done your training every day, and then like the other 50%, the mental thing we were talking about, like that's very important in that times. So you are confident enough that you can do that you can do it no matter what. That you've trained this, and you're gonna do it anyway. And if it doesn't work, whatever, it didn't work. But the most important thing about it is what I've learned in the last 2 years is, as long as you have fun, whatever you're doing right now, it's gonna be all right, because you just had the best day of your life.
But okay, well then, when you are thinking about your environment, so what would happen if you didn't have your environment that you like? You didn't get to go to where we always train and with the school and everything, and you had to train independently on your own. And once a month, let's say, you could snowboard with your buddies, but you were basically training independently. Would that change your motivation or change how much fun you're having?
If I wasn't in the environment I feel comfortable with, I would definitely just train and do my stuff independent, and try to find the people I want to surround myself with, that I feel comfortable, that I feel that I have fun every day when I meet them and do my training. Just trying to find people that fit me, or where I fit in, or like it comes around. And just do independent trainings, and do my stuff. And sometimes, sometimes you just go back, and then it works if you just keep a little bit distance, a little bit more. And so that's kind of the way I'm trying to find sometimes, and to look for the people I want to surround myself with, and not being stuck in an environment I don't want to have.
But now, okay, let's flip the script for a second. And let's say the world's best snowboarding coach came up to you and said, Andre, I'm going to work with you one-on-one until 22. And you are going to basically be my slave, but I hypothetically guarantee you a gold medal at the Olympics in 2 years. Would you take that deal and leave your fun environment if you thought it was a guarantee or a near guarantee? Or would you still say, no, the fun is more important. I don't want to leave my friends.
I wouldn't go with him, because if he actually could guarantee me that I'm gonna be on top 22, that I'm gonna get this gold medal if I train with him, he would need to know me first to guarantee me that he's gonna make it. And if he doesn't know me, he can't tell me that I'm gonna be his slave, basically, because it wouldn't work like that. So we would need to find some other solution for that, and so that's why it wouldn't work.
That's interesting, because there was
like,
in the back in the day for gymnastics, there was the whole Karoli camp, which Karoli was a really well-known Romanian coach who moved into the U.S. and everything when gymnastics was kind of booming. And he had his ranch and everything. They call it the ranch, I think. And him and his wife, if I'm not mistaken, basically ran it. And the idea was that like little kids would basically up and leave their homes and go to this camp here. And, you know, obviously there was some good and some bad about it, but they were really able to produce a lot of great athletes because they worked them like, you know, like slaves basically, but they did get a lot of results. And a lot of parents were okay with that sacrifice of their kid, even though I don't think the kids necessarily knew what they were getting signed up for. It's been demolished now, but there is in our sector, not so much anymore, I don't think. I think a lot more people are like you now, where they're saying, no, I need a good environment. I need to feel at home here, not just work like a dog all day long. But it used to be like that. And now it's definitely changing. And we're seeing this change with more freestyle sports really emerging, where the athlete takes more control of the training. Would you agree that that's kind of the direction that's all going?
It definitely is going that way. And I think it used to work kind of good back in the days, the way they did it, because people were differently minded. Like, people had a different mind. You work and you get results, like, no matter what. Today it's like maybe the people changed. It's not that it has been way better. It would have been way better if people would have done it like the way we're trying to do it today back in the days. Maybe this worked in these times pretty good. It probably would have worked way better for some people out there if they did it the way we're trying to do it today. Definitely, I don't want to say anything, but back in the days, it might have been the right thing for the most of the people to gain results, to gain their their training and become better. Today, definitely, this is a whole another story. People are free. People are mostly doing whatever they want, and especially athletes, because they've decided that they want to do it, and then they, of course, those athletes want to be treated like that. They want to have their own decisions, their own plans, and just want to support, instead of somebody who tells them what to do right now and what to do next, and you're gonna go to sleep now, and then you eat this, and this. If you're an athlete who wants it anyway, you will do it, and then you just need some support instead of somebody who tells you what to do.
Well, that's very interesting, because we just did a survey on one of the old gymnastics coaching groups, and we asked them, you know, what's more important to an athlete's overall success? Of course, you can mix up the way you question it to get slightly different answers, but the general consensus was on this group that 90% of the coaches thought that it was 90% the coach's ability to make the athlete do well. But that would go against, obviously, I don't think you agree with that. Personally, I don't agree with it at all. But the coaches in our industry have shown already, and I'll send you this, but they have shown us that they believe that they are the 75% or more of the equation to an athlete's success. Would you say that Mickey and Luca are 75% of the reason that you are right now? Don't get me wrong, but if you are top 5 in the world right now, do you think that's 75% of their doing, or is this you?
In the end, it's the athlete, definitely, and I wouldn't agree with 75%. It is very important that you have support, that you have people who surround yourself with with support, and you know that they're there if something happens, if you need them, but like you do the work. In the end, you have people who give you advice and can do something for you, so you can be more focused on what you're doing right now, and they're trying to help you and support you. And that's basically, that's like that's the environment you want to have as an athlete who wants it by his own, like him own. Like as a coach, you can make people to success, but like not to the very top. You can make people who need this, who can't do it on their own. Those people who can push up and make something out of it. I would say it kind of, in my opinion, it could work. Like it could work, but not very good. If you have good-minded athletes who want it anyway, you want to support them, surround them with with all the stuff they need to just take it and place it somewhere where they need it right now. And that's what a coach athlete relationship should be like, in my opinion.
I think you're right. I think my industry is definitely older, and they come from a military background, nationalism, all that sort of stuff, where it's almost like you're working for the state. And I know the younger coaches now don't see it this way, which is probably a very good thing. But back in the day, and even some of the older coaches are still hanging around, if for them, it's almost like they were brought up, and I was like this, that you go to the gym and you work for the gym. That was your job. You went there, and I remember going to my coaches and saying, hey, I just want to train. I just want to figure it out on my own. I just want to play around a little bit. I don't really want to compete. I just want to train. Well, then there's no room for you here. That was the answer, and everyone had this answer back in the day. And coaches, it was a job. And nowadays we're seeing that, the athletes are taking more control. And I think some gymnastics coaches are struggling with that, because think of it, if their livelihood is to give you that pathway, right? And that's how they see themselves. They see themselves as parents. They see themselves as being really involved with the kid. But from my perspective, and from the biology and psychology out there, the worst thing a coach can do is be more than 50% of the equation. 75, 90% is way too high. You should be definitely low.
Definitely.
Allow the athlete to take the lead. Like you said, give them the tools to succeed, but don't pave the way for them. Let them play with it, and you're just helping them out. And that's what at least the psychology and biology says, that we're going to eventually go. Because why wouldn't you have an athlete that is completely independent? Why would I, at the end of the day, isn't that the best athlete? The one that doesn't need a coach, because they've absorbed so much information from their environments and from textbooks and videos and other athletes and stuff, that they know what they need to do. And the coach is just there at maybe 10%, helping them, like you said, supporting them when they're down. Everyone needs a shoulder to cry on, a bit of help here and there. But I think you should reverse those, and it's a 90% athlete, 10% coach, if the athlete is actually comprehending what they're doing. Otherwise, then I wouldn't give much credit to the athlete, because then the coach should be on that podium, right? If they're doing 90% of the work, as some of these coaches are saying,
Yeah, it's like you can't, like, if you build a street and somebody's walking on it, you don't cheer on the guy who is able to walk on the street. You're rather cheering the guy who's able to actually build the street, right?
I love that analogy. That is a very good analogy. I want to know athletes. This is what we love about freestyle. I want athletes that are free to build their style because they understand the mechanics. They know what to do. I don't want to hear the athlete that says, I don't know, what do I do, coach? And they're trembling like this, waiting for the coach to solve their problems. No, that is not the athlete that's going to go to the Olympics. That is, you're not going to the Olympics with that mentality. And I think everyone starts with that a little bit, not everyone, but a lot of people start. But I think it's the coach's job is to almost keep them pushing out the door, let the, what they say, the birds leave the nest, as early as possible with the right tools, and just be there with them as like a tour guide, not a controlling,
It's like, yeah, as a support. Like I definitely agree with 90% athlete, 10% coach. Don't get me wrong, those 10% coach are very important.
Yes, they are
very important. Strong 10%. If you don't have people who give you the support you need sometimes and give you the tools to work with, you're just a 90% athlete, not a 100% athlete, and you can't learn it. Where should you learn from? Like whoever, if it's coaches, if it's other people in your life, you need other humans to learn from on your way growing up. If that's your coach, who can give you so much education and so much tools to figure out how does that work, how do I build myself the street, the path I want to walk on, and he just shows you some stuff you can do if you want. But if he always builds you the path, like how should you learn how to run, or like appreciate what you're having right now, and that gives you even more motivation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it'll naturally go that way with our industry. At least obviously you guys are miles ahead. I know that Mickey and Luca are very hands off with you and kind of let you go, but I've also seen them sort of say, come on, Andre, buck up, when you're having a bad day or this, that, or the other.
Yeah,
they're very,
you need somebody who just got your back sometimes and just give you a little push if you're down. Definitely, because sometimes you're not motivated for some reason and you're tired, and if somebody watches you from out there, they tell you what they see, and then if you hear this, because they say like, dude, you're fit, you're good, you can do it, and you're thinking, wait, yeah, am I just lazy or having a tough time right now? Probably, obviously I'm just lazy, so I can do it anyway.
Yeah. Everyone has those lazy days. Yeah. And I agree. We always say the coach should just be a spotter at the end of the day. And when I was training, my coaches would turn around and say, well, I was the reason that you made it. They would love to tell themselves that, because that's what humans do. They, inflate their self-worth in every aspect. And by athletes, by technically us doing the same thing, we're inflating our own sort of egos here by saying, well, it's 90% us and only 10% of the coach. And then the coaches are saying the same thing. It's 90% us and only 10% of the athletes, which is kind of a funny sort of dichotomy, I guess we'll call it. But that's just what humans do. So you kind of almost ignore that aspect. But I think it's going to become athlete driven, and the coaches just become spotters. My coaches, I can only remember a handful of times when I'd say, thank God my coach was there. You know what I mean? Only a handful of times. And most of the time it was just let me go. Let me do it. Let me do it my way. I figured out, I know where I want to go. I know how I want to do it. And not all athletes are like that. But I think if we want to have sufficient or efficient athletes, they have to get to that point where it is athlete driven. And the coaches are there to help. I don't see how you're going to have constantly evolving sport if the people doing the sport aren't the ones evolving it. You know what I mean? If it's the coach telling you what to do all the time, I don't see how the coach that isn't in it would be able to unravel a new thing all the time, not as much as the athletes would if they take control,
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah. But now one thing our industry would say, well, because gymnastics is high risk, we're so focused on injuries, and that's why we are a lot more, let's call it, controlling the outcomes as much as we can, because one wrong move and busted neck, busted arm, whatever it is, right? But you guys have injuries as well, and your coaches are still a lot more hands off. Do you think that if your coaches were more hands on like gymnastics coaches, that would have saved some injuries for you, or do you think it wouldn't have mattered?
Probably not. It wouldn't have saved any injuries. Maybe in one or two situations, it would have been good that somebody told me to stop right now. Like sometimes like one or another coach told me to do a step back because I've done lots of training. I'm tired. They can see that I'm tired, and if I want to do this new trick now, they kind of feel that it wouldn't be as safe as it was in the morning because I'm tired, and that made like that kind of helped me definitely that I think I thought about it, and yeah, that I didn't injure myself in the end. But like they were really sensitive with it and didn't tell me, okay, now you stop. And now you don't do this or do this because otherwise you're gonna be injured. Or they made me think about how I feel, about my body feeling. And that's actually what saved me from some injuries probably. But if they would have been always like, stop doing that because otherwise you do this and you know, like that, I would have never learned how to feel my body, how to get the feeling for me being tired or super strong, fit, how like about my concentration, if I can still focus and stuff. I would have never learned it, and that's what actually holds me from injuring myself. Like just the body control and the feeling for being tired or not, and that's what they gave me. And what I wouldn't have it if they would always say like, don't do that, like stop now, like you got to figure it out your own, and that's what they actually did.
Would you argue, and my coaches and my industry is going to hate me for asking this, but could you see it ever being argued that by coaching your athletes, even traditional gymnastics, but coaching them more as a freestyler, the way you were doing, where it's a little bit more you lead, you fall down, you know, the coach is there to help, but it's a lot more in the athlete's hand. Do you think you'd actually make better athletes in gymnastics if they took that freestyle approach that got them mentally more prepared? Because if the coach is doing all the preparing for you and telling you what to do, like you said, you don't know what to do then when the time comes and the coach can't do it for you. So would you say that having a freestyle approach to training would actually make even a traditional athlete better performer and better equipped for their careers?
Well, if you start from the very beginning and the way like we do it, to let the athletes experience all that by their own, because one day they have to learn it anyway if they want to become coaches. So if you let the kids develop all these experience, like all these feelings for your body and for everything, and just show them the way to that, into the right direction, how to get these experiences they need for their upcoming life and athlete life. I think that would make some better athletes probably, because as we said, it should be like 90% athlete, 10% coach. In that 90% athlete, there's also that you as an athlete know how to deal with dangerous situations, that you know that your body knows it without thinking about it. And if the coach does all the mental preparing and everything for you, and you just do your job and that nothing else, yeah, I wouldn't work out.
I agree with you 100%. And this is where we've gotten a lot of criticisms, not a lot, actually, less than some people think. But we were basically saying what you're saying, that at the end of the day, guys, if the athlete doesn't comprehend their body and you don't get them right at the starting levels, you know, learning how to roll when they're 4 years old, but roll wrong, you know, and get a little bump, and that's okay. But it's if you wait till they're 17, 18, 19 to then let them go, well, yeah, it's, do you guys have homeschooling in Germany?
Homeschooling?
Yeah.
You can, I think you can do that, but not many people do it.
Well, it's pretty funny. So in North America, they'll have it, and there's always this kind of joke that goes with it. That's like when you homeschool someone forever, and then all of a sudden you let them out in the wild, they just become like drug addicts, and do all the bad stuff that they were blocked from, and all of a sudden they explode out and become all these bad things that they thought that they could hide from them. And a lot of parents
they've never learned how to deal with it.
They don't know how to deal with it. And I think it's almost like bullying as well. Everyone's running around saying, well, we have to get bullies out of the school. Well, I think it was Chris Rock, if I remember correctly, he said bullies do half the work. They tell you that falling down is what makes the going up even have meaning from a psychological perspective. So you got to be able to train an athlete to fall down at a very, consistent rate that's controllable. Then they fall down a little bit more, then a little bit more, but then they gain a little bit more, then they fall a little bit more, then they gain more. And then it's a balancing act between these two halves where I feel like some people in my industry, at least, they think that they can control it to prevent the downside. But then you also prevent the upside. And that's the balancing act between good and evil and yes and no, right and wrong, two sides of the coin. You can't have an athlete just go up and feel good without the possibility of going down. So you need to train both equally. That would be my thought.
Yeah, like how do you know what's good if you've never known what's bad?
You can control it. I think it's about the systematic approach of developing these the sensitivity and awareness for the bad parts. Like you said, if your coach just told you when to stop, but never told you to reflect. Well, okay, André, how do you now know when to stop when the coach is sick or when you're at the competition and no one's around for whatever reason? You literally won't know what to do. And now you're getting injured. So a coach that doesn't teach you to have that self-fulfillment, self-reliance is actually a bad coach that's actually endangering you by being controlling and safety conscious by over too much. And I think it's a funny little paradox,
Yeah. One of my former coaches, like one of my first actually, once told me a phrase, like a sentence. I can show you the way, but you got to go at your own.
Yeah, I agree. Neo, I can show you the door, but you have to be the one that walks through it, right? We've all heard that. Yeah, and yeah. I think so. I think it's safer and better athleticism, better control. Like it's like, okay, so let's take this outside of sports, guys. So if you're gonna say that you're gonna control your athlete, then let's go into a car. So you're telling me you're never gonna drive a car on your own without your driving instructor there? That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? You have to be able to learn to drive your own car and understand it, whether you're off-roading it with freestyle crazy stuff in a trampoline park or through the woods, or if you're just doing a nice big wide slope that, very low risk kind of stuff. Either way, you need to know how to drive that car,
Yeah.
I want to ask you your training plan for the year as a professional snowboarder. What does that look like? How many training camps, like the ones we did, Kitzsteinhorn and some of the other places, how many of those kind of camps would you have? How many hours a week? Give us a breakdown of your training.
So once the winter and spring season is finally done, at first I just whenever I'm not snowboarding, I'm doing strength training in the gym, or doing trampoline training, go skating, go surfing, slacklining, whatever, parkour sometimes, all that stuff that keeps me fit and activated and build my strength. And then we have usually we have like a 2 weeks camp in June, July in France. Then sometimes we go to New Zealand for 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. That's like 6 weeks already. And in fall, before the winter season starts, we have a 2 weeks camp in Switzerland. That's 8 weeks, and a 4 weeks camp in Austria, where you've been joining us for a couple times. And so that's 12 weeks during the summer, training on snow actually.
So
and
pick the right.
all in between, I'm doing like trampoline, strength training, as I said, and other stuff that builds my body, feeling for my body.
And when you're at these training camps, give me a rundown of that timeline. So you arrive with the team in your big Snowboard Germany black vans, and you all settle on in. You go to the store, you get your food for the week, kind of thing, like you did last time. Then what's the pattern of training? Is it day on, day off, day on, day off? Is it 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days? How do you do that on average?
So we look at the weather situation for the next couple of days first, and then we're trying to plan when we can do what kind of training. Usually, of course, we're trying to find the weather training days for developing tricks. If we're like in Les Alpes in France and the summer season has just started, we're not trying to do some new tricks. We start from the very beginning on like technique training, and then it doesn't matter. No matter the weather, we go up there and do technique training, whatever, and sometimes trying to do some new tricks. And so we usually on average do like 2 or 3 days, 3 days on snow, 1 day off snow, and then 2 or 3 days on snow, 1 day off snow.
And when do you take a day off? Do you have a regular off day, or that's just when the conditions suck so bad you all decide that will be your day off?
Yeah, like as I said, it depends on the weather. If we had like 4 days of good weather, of course, and then there's like a day of shitty weather, we take the shitty day off. If we have like 4 okay days, and we can't just like do 3 days and have to do a break in between, maybe because we're training on 3,500 meters, and so we need a day off. So we just take one of them, and sometimes we even take sunny weather days off if we have 1 week straight sun. It always depends on the weather and what we want to train in the next days.
Okay, very cool. And how do you afford to do snowboarding? So what is the cost for a young snowboarder about to get into it? Mom and dad just don't know what to do with their son. The son or daughter wants to take it up. What kind of financial costs are we looking at over a career of 15, 20 years snowboarding?
Whew. It's expensive for the parents, definitely. First, when you just start snowboarding, and then you get into the scene and want to do competitions, that's when it starts, like local competitions. Parents always need to drive you to the mountain so you can go snowboarding, and then like to other resorts where events are happening. You meet other people, ride other parks or other terrains. So this is where it all starts. And then like if you become like 12, 13 years old, you start really traveling with a plane to other continents and stuff. That's when it really gets expensive. And that's what has to be paid first by the parents until you finally make your way up to the very top and get sponsors who can pay for that and start paying for that. That was my luck back then, that I had the National Association that supported us, but still my parents had to pay a lot on their own first, and now I get good support, and so so I can do it almost on my own. My parents are still supporting me by money, and that's something, if you want it, you can make it happen. If your parents are supporting you still, you can make it happen to the very top and get good sponsored deals, so it all pays off in the end. But it's a hard way, and you got to go through it.
You got to definitely build that up. It's basically all of our business is basically finding sponsors for kids and sponsors for projects and investors, which are basically sponsors, and it takes a lot more work than a lot of people think it does, and
it's more work than you think, definitely. And not only for you, also for your parents and supporters. You can get sponsors that give you like at least like the material, like snowboards and clothes and stuff, but like traveling is still very expensive. You have to pay for it on your own in the beginning.
So, but now that you're on Snowboard Germany, they cover all of that for you?
Not always.
Only the big one?
Not always, because we like, the team is growing and we always have pretty much the same amount of money. So and as soon as our results get better, we can get more money. But for now, it's not always guaranteed that they can pay for everything.
So they'll basically say, well, we have X amount of a budget and we have these top 2 boys, 2 top girls, and therefore we can afford to send them to China this year or Copper Mountain this year or wherever it is, but we can't afford this one and this one. It's what our people do, and they pick and choose depending on the budgets. That's what happens with you guys?
That's kind of what it happens, yeah. But they always try to find a solution for everybody, so that everybody has the same chance to make it possible somehow. And so it's not like, okay, you get paid everything and you don't, and not like that, because you're the best right now, but you could make it, but you're not there yet, so you won't be going there because we have this guy already. It's not like that. Like, they always try to find a solution for everybody, so everybody has the same chance to make it. And so we are all kind of sometimes paying a flight. Like, they say, okay, if you want to go there, we can. They always try to do the best they can, and that the amount of money you need to pay extra is like, if you want to go there, we can do this and this and this for you, and the rest is on your own. If you really want to do it, and we're still supporting you with the best way that we can.
So it's more of a collaborative effort as the whole team. Of how many riders would you say would be on Snowboard Germany if you added them all up, that you were dividing this money amongst?
I don't know actually about whole Snowboard Germany. Like, we have a lot of athletes, like PGS and PSL riders, like slalom, slalom, and we have lots of snowboard crossers, snowboard cross racers. I don't know about how many those people are. And but like half pipe and slopestyle and big air, we're probably 20 people.
So then
just for freestyle.
So you take your budget and then you divide it basically somewhat evenly amongst 20 people based on, their attitudes, their training, obviously results, but kind of like who wants it, who's going to be, and you're looking at more of it as an investment, not just saying, well, because you're top 1, you get this much. If you're top 2, you get, it's not really that systematic.
Like, there is a system also in Germany that works like that, with the team status. Like, when you get better results, you go up, you make your way up to the next status. That's a system that is there, but they're trying to build bridges between those status, between those stages. If you're on stage 1 and there's someone on stage 2, they're trying to build some bridges down up there, so you don't feel like, okay, if I don't make these results, I'm never gonna make it. So it's a good support there, that you have the ability to kind of, the more you show that you really want it, that you're motivated and you're working for it, the more they can actually help you getting to your goals, and getting those goals and step up the ladder.
Yeah, for us, at least when I was on team, they didn't have anything really like that. They had a few like bursaries and grants that you could apply for and things like that for the younger ones. But yeah, they hadn't yet, as of yet. I'm not sure if they've done it now, but they haven't really integrated more of a overall system. And it was a lot of the top few guys getting most of the money, and then everyone else was just, until you get there, there's no point, and it became, I added it up with all the traveling, and it cost somewhere like $250,000 for traveling to all the nationals and all that different stuff, and the fees when you add it all up, monthly fees for training and things like that, and it adds up pretty quick, But do you guys have fees, like monthly fees that you pay into when you're younger, or do you join a snowboard club as a kid and you compete, and like, how does that work?
So you always pay a fee like every year, and what amount of fee you're paying is based on those stages I've told you. Like there's A, B, C. There used to be A, B, C, D, C, D stages, and it depends on which stage you are right now. And the lower you are, the more you have to pay your own, like a fee every year. So yeah, so this is still how it is. In the first stage, you don't have to pay it. For second stage, it's like, okay, still have to pay something, but it's definitely doable for somebody who is earning his own money. Third stage is more, and fourth stage is like it's like almost everything on your own.
Yeah, we had the same sort of
So
thing.
you gotta definitely gotta earn your spot on the stage you want to come, and you have to earn the money you want to be getting, like the support you want to be getting one day. But they make it, like on Snowboard Germany, they make it a bit I wouldn't say easier, but reasonable, or how much money you're getting right now. It's like the more you work, the more motivated you are, the faster you can get more support. Because if you're really into it and you really want it, it's like you get more support faster. Because if there's a potential in you, they will see it and they can help you.
Yeah, Canada has stuff like that, and I think as the time goes, we're learning more about how to help the ones that are younger. Because if you don't have a feeder system and you're not able to, equally distribute that opportunity to, people that are just new, then your whole sport dies. So it's in everyone's best interest to find a way to, handpick those motivated ones, not just based on results, but based on just that attitude, that positive attitude. I want to go.
Yeah. And what they do is like, okay, so the original system of those stages is based on results you have done last year. What our coaches try to do is mixing that up, those results, mixing with the potential you have in yourself and you're bringing out, to make it possible to support you when you need the support, and not after you have the results already and you don't need it anymore.
So it's almost like the half of your score, we'll call it, is competition results, but the other half is training results. How are you at training? What kind of person are you? All that. So they take that in equally.
Yeah, and that's like the bridge I was talking about.
Yeah,
how I got it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a very good way to do it. And we'll see how long that goes.
That motivates you even more to work hard, so you get your support one day.
Yeah, you work towards it. It's like a job. That's the end of the day. It is a job at some level. Everyone's doing this for at least some kind of resources, whether it's personal fame or actual money, all that sort of stuff. So, but now, don't you guys get a purse or cash money when you do well at a World Cup?
Like you get prize money from the organizer.
How much is that usually? There's an average, or it changes all the time?
No, it's not much. So some organizers are willing to give out more prize money than needed. Like it's needed that everybody, whoever wants to have a World Cup at home, they have to give out, I think, $10,000 for the winner, 10 or 11, something like that, between 10,000 for the winner. And so then it goes down 5,000 for second, 2,500 for third, and you can imagine like the ninth place is getting like $150.
Okay, and then but each one's a little bit.
It goes down.
It just goes down.
And like there's one competition in Switzerland, the Laax Open. They give out for the winner, I think, 35,000 or 25,000 instead of 10. That's pretty cool. So there's a lot more of prize money involved sometimes, but usually on the World Cups, and 90% of the World Cups, it's like 10,000 for the winner and like $100 for 10th.
So even at the end of the day, even if you won everything, you're not walking out with more than $40,000-$50,000 after.
If you've won everything, like all the World Cups and in X Games included, US Open, U Tour, all that stuff, all too, you'll be like, I don't know, maybe $80,000.
$80,000 to be the best rider in the world. The most you can really get from the competition circuit, at least, is 80,000.
80,000, 100,000. That's it.
Is that where more of the money is getting sponsorships?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you do your job well, and like marketing, self-marketing, and you have good sponsor deals, you can earn way more money than with the prize money.
Now, do sponsors want competition results? Do they want the cool edits for sort of free skiing or freeboarding out in the backwoods with the cool camera angles like you see on YouTube all the time? Do they want a bit of both? What are the sponsors looking for?
Depends on the brand's philosophy, on the brand's marketing philosophy. Like if you really fit into the brand, if you have like some snowboarding brands are like more into filming, into the course scene. You just go out there with your friends, have a couple of beers, and do your movie part while wrecking up your body every time you fall. That's core snowboarding. And some brands are like more like, okay, maybe we like professionals like who work for their goals, and they're looking more for those kind of people to support. So it always depends. Like and there's like other brands that doesn't even do anything in snowboarding, that come from the outside industry, that actually bring you as an individual more money, I would say.
How? Give me an example. What would they do?
They just use you as like as for their own marketing, as image.
Oh, okay.
If they have a cool snowboarder, they have a pretty cool image that works perfectly out there. And they have other sources where they can earn way more money than in the snowboard industry. That's why they can have more budget, of course. And you're very important to them because you are giving them a good image, because they are the ones that have the cool snowboarder in their brand.
So how, if a kid is younger but they decided, you know what, I really want to do this, I do need some sponsors, mom and dad can't fork out $250,000 for my training over the next how many years, so I need to get some sponsors. What would be the easiest way for them to start?
The easiest way to get sponsors who actually pay you?
No, just to start off, let's say mom and dad have a bit of money for a couple of years, but they say, hey, little Johnny, we need to get some sponsors for you because your mother and I can't afford this for long term. So if it's a kid that's got a couple years buffer, but he needs to start getting the sponsors, what would be your advice to him or her?
I would say, first of all, stay real. If you're like, it's all about relationships. If you have friends, they most likely support you with whatever they can give you. If somebody doesn't like you because you feel like some dude who's trying to be somebody else, just for some other people to like him, they probably won't like you because you're not yourself, you're not real. If you're doing what you love actually, and you're showing the people the love and the fun you're having, just like the way you are, they would like to connect to you, and that's how it starts. It all starts, and they know you, and they have you in their heads if they're thinking about doing anything with some people of the scene. And that's how you get to the sponsors actually, because the sponsors are always there. You just get to know the people and talk to them.
It's all
and be you.
Networking. Okay, very cool.
Networking, yeah.
where would be the best place to do your networking? Like, is this where you want to start connecting with all the different hills and different riders and all that? Or is there a specific place to go where maybe you might meet some sponsors? Are there conferences, conventions, different events that they want to go to? All of them? Like, what do they want to do?
There are some conventions. There's one in Munich every year, like where pretty much all the snowboarders and skiers go to see some brands and see the team managers, because they're all there. It's very important. And there are also some events where everybody is you just gotta buy some snowboarding magazines or follow them on Instagram. You will always see where are the most important events where you should be, and just be there, be present, and talk to people and go ride with them sometimes.
Go ride with them. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And what
being
about
present, being present at the events where everybody else is? That's how you get to know people.
yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
standing in the corner not doing anything, of course they won't get to know you, because you want to know them and they don't even know who you are. So you gotta do the first step.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, then let's say the athlete gets a contact, someone who's, yes, I'm very interested. I saw what you did at last competition. I hear your coaches love your training attitude. We want to sponsor you and give you a free snowboard and bindings and boots. And what would you suggest the athlete does next if once they get their first sort of product sponsor?
Take it.
Yeah. Assuming we're going to take it, and then we're going, oh, thanks for the free stuff, but I don't really want it. I'd rather pay for it. No. So if they get the product, if they get the product sponsor, then what would you suggest that they do next? Is this when they go and use it? Do they attach all their stickers to it? Do they go make edits? What do they do now that they have this first sponsor?
I'd say just do whatever they've done before and trying to be the way you are, like, because that's why the new sponsor wants to sponsor you, actually, because of the person you are right now, and because of the future you're probably gonna have. And they're not sponsoring you for suddenly becoming somebody else. It's like, just do whatever you've done before. what they want to give you all the stuff for, and do whatever makes you happy. And if they was after 2 years, if they still want to sponsor you because they're like, hey man, you're enveloping very good, and we see lots of potential in the future, still want to keep on working with you, that's pretty fine. That's super cool, the best ever. Otherwise, if they don't want to do this with you anymore, you've probably just changed and go into another direction. That's also okay.
So it doesn't really necessarily matter if the sponsor doesn't follow with you. There'll be a new sponsor that might have a different image that matches with you as you evolve as well. So you naturally will potentially have evolving brands, different brands every step of the way as you go up.
Yeah, basically.
And when a brand approaches you and gives you equipment or product or anything like that, what do they normally ask for in return?
Like when you're like a kid, they don't really ask for anything. They just want to, first of all, they want to support you because they see something in you and see some potential for the future. And the better you get, and the older you get, and the more present the more presence you have in some events, and because everybody knows you, of course, they want to use your image as marked for marketing. Of course, that's why they give you the stuff, so you ride it, because people are like, hey, I like this guy, he's riding these boards, and I think that's cool, so I'm gonna buy this board. That's how it works, basically, of course. And but yeah, and then sometimes they have events, like they sponsor different events and want you to go to those events and just be present there. Or if you're like highly professional and like on top, like on the top 5 whatever of the world, of course they're like, okay, so if you reach like top 3 in this competition, we can give you like we can give you like a amount of money for reward, and if you don't reach that goal, you won't get the reward. And that's like how it works.
Okay, so they normally give you kind of like a basic product or basic cover some cost depending on which level you're at, and then when you also perform very well, then they'll give you extra money on top.
Yeah, it's like this is how you could make a deal. Otherwise it's like, you know, if you can be on top of the world but still being very unimportant for other brands because you don't have your own image. That could also happen. And so it's always like, you know, it's not the brands who do marketing for you. It's like you do your marketing, and you trying to become a person out there that people can rely on, and see that people see, and that's what you're worth in the end. What brands are paying for, not always because you're the best, more likely because you are an individual in this scene, in which scene, whatever, and that you are important out there. People know you, people follow you, and that's what they're paying for.
And how could a snowboarder differentiate? What are some options that come to the top of your head for ways to be different than other snowboarders? You both have your legs attached to one board. Your skills are roughly similar. You know, you got your 12s on both sides. You got this. How can you be different? What would you suggest?
That's what I'm still trying to figure out, how to be like so different than everybody else. Trying to find my own style, and I'm on my way to find my own style, do stuff that other people don't do, like, or maybe like do the tricks that maybe other people can do, but a little bit different than everybody else. And that's like the most important thing, I think, in snowboarding, that you have your own style and nothing that somebody could ever copy.
Okay.
And that basically happens if you really do it out of your own motivation. If you really just want to snowboard and do whatever you want right now, that's how you develop your own style. And that's very important, and people will remember it.
Now, would it be good for a young snowboarder to start thinking about making a social media presence as part of their way of differentiating? Because when you're on social media, you can make your whole unique strategy that other snowboarders haven't done, and you have a little more control over that than just in the middle of a competition thinking, oh, I have to slightly tweak this a little bit differently than the last guy. You know, it's going to be maybe easier through social media. Would that make an easy avenue for an up-and-coming snowboarder to differentiate?
A big social media presence is probably very helpful because people know you already. And I mean, people most likely look at other snowboarders who they also already know, of course, and they're like, hey, I know this guy, I'm gonna watch him ride, more likely than all the others they don't even know. So it is definitely helpful, but I'd say it's not necessary to have a big presence in social media, because, you know, like, people who are actually interested in snowboarding and the whole scene and competitions and movies and other events you can just go to and watch or actually take part. They see you if you are a good snowboarder, and if you're present, and if you're doing a good job and you're doing your own style and stuff. They see you anyway. And all the people who are actually interested in the whole snowboarding scene, those are the people that actually count. Not your Instagram followers from South Africa.
Very good point. So you're saying laser in, figure out who you want to follow you. You got to make friends with that brand instead of just thinking, as long as I got 1 million followers, the sponsorships will come in, because that's not true. You have to have a good following in that demographic of snowboarders, either female snowboarders or male snowboarders or snowboarders under this age or whatever it is. You got to tap into that specific market in your own country compared to just a very thin global presence of mom and pop few random accounts. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like if you gain up to a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram, doesn't mean you are a big guy in the scene. You are actually moving. You're actually swimming. You know, might have the ability to become an influencer and sell people, but you gotta think if that is the thing you really want to be, is that the person you want to become, or do you want to become somebody in the scene you are actually walking through? And I mean, as I said, it is definitely helpful to get people to know you. And if you have a big Instagram profile, everybody's following you, people out of the scene are more like probably rather following you than somebody else with the same skills who's I don't know, who's got 2,000 followers. It is helpful, but doesn't mean you're a big guy in the scene. You build your own name and your like your image out there, being present and talking to people.
And when that's that's a very interesting point, because so we went to the more public side of it because I was in a box and had nowhere to go. Everyone knew who we were on the inside circuit, but I was never a top competitor. You know, I chose more of the social media route because it opened up trampoline to new markets, because I had been in my own market for a very long time and I just didn't see really any growth. I had like, okay, well, I can either win the Olympics, and if you do, you only get $35,000 and maybe a few endorsements, but no one endorses someone in tights. No offense to any of them. It's just, that's not what people are paying for. There's not really brandability. There's, you know, obviously a few of the top guys get a few endorsements, but these guys are not getting the opportunities that I was looking for, you know? So I decided to go that route. But at the same time, there's people like Dong Dong, who's still like reigning. I don't know if he's a world champion as of 2020, but he is still like the god that everyone knows, you know, for a very long time, from China. And he's always been winning. He has basically 0 followers, but everyone knows him in that industry. So if he wanted to get sponsors for whatever, it'd be easy for him because of that name, but it didn't necessarily correlate with his social media following. So it's a very good point you bring up.
Yeah, it's like two different things you're working on. Like if you're working on your presence in the scene, in the court scene, I'd say, or if you're working on the social media. Depends on what you want. Do you want to be do you want to be reliable? You want people to actually remember you and knowing exactly who you are, what kind of person you are, or do you just want to do you want everybody just to see your content?
Yeah, you
like,
need an image.
It's like Instagram is quantity, core scene presence is quality. If you can combine those two things, you've won.
That is a very good point. I like that. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's really good for those young snowboarders, or even just anyone in any industry, you know, kind of keep that in the back of their mind when they're developing their plan. They need a strategy, but they need to hit the right people, but then they also need to be able to reach out to new people as well.
Yeah.
Very cool. And okay, so switching gears a little bit, how have you seen snowboarding grow or change since you were a kid up to 2020? Is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? Is it plateaued? Or attitudes changing? What's going on?
So yeah, a couple years back, like 10 years back, maybe more, the snowboarding scene had a bad breakdown. Everybody switched back to skis again, and it wasn't that cool anymore to be a snowboarder as it used to be. But I have the feeling snowboarding is fighting its way back, and I have the feeling that more and more people are starting snowboarding again, and that's pretty cool. So the scene has been pretty much the same for a long time. Kind of the same people and same events and stuff, and that's super cool. I think that just because of that breakdown, no, like this, the actual snowboarders scene didn't break down too. They kept together, and they were like keeping that their all the people together, and just kept it going, and thought they were way back up to the people, and they wanted to reach all the people, and that's what they have made happen. And now it's going back up, and they're recovering. That's how it seems. Like, everybody's talking about how bad the financial situations in the industry are, but I have the feeling that it's gonna be better in a couple of years.
Well, what do you mean, the financial situation? What's going on?
Yeah, there are less and less snowboarders. Like, people are buying less snowboards, are not investing anymore in clothes and stuff. So the whole industry is a bit on low level right now. And
why is that?
But it's mostly because there's not enough snowboarders anymore, and there should be, because all the events are pretty expensive, and so the companies are not willing to pay so much money for certain events than they used to in the past, because they don't have that many customers anymore. And it's not just one brand or two brands of the whole scene, of the whole industry. It's like everybody.
So what happened 10 years ago that made it drop down, that now it's going back up? Is it just it got boring, or it was just too expensive and the brands dumped a bunch of money in for the first 10, 20 years, and then all of a sudden they realized they weren't really getting the return that they thought, so they all started pulling out, and now the new wave is building it back up again? Is it that simple?
Like, I know that snowboarding had a big hype. Like, many years back, there was a big hype. Everybody wants to snowboard, and they had like lots of money in that times. And like, the future was bright for everybody in the industry. And then, like, it's like every hype, it goes back. Every hype goes back, and some people stay and are still willing to keep on doing that, what they just started to do with the hype, and they're still hyped. But like, most of the people are going back to normal and do what they have always been doing, because it's not the coolest thing anymore. Like a fidget spinner. Who's doing fidget spinner anymore?
I have like 20.
You know? No. Yeah, that's like the people who stayed. It's just that snowboarding has always been a bit cooler than fidget spinners, and people are still doing it, lots of people. And those are the ones who stayed. And other, like younger kids, now they're like, yeah, it's people are coming back, and I have the feeling that's going to be better in a couple of years.
Maybe it's because now social media, because about 10 years ago, so it was like social media kind of blew up, and then snowboarders were cool, and that's when you had like Shaun White, winning all the time and all that, so everyone wanted to be like that. But maybe it was just the fact that there wasn't another Shaun White that came in to add a little extra flair, and maybe you're looking for that new Shaun White that's coming up to be the next, easily brandable snowboarder. I'm just throwing out suggestions here, because we're trying to figure out, what is it? Because if you can figure out what makes a sport grow and doesn't go down, our sports, like gymnastics, like traditional gymnastics, kind of got lucky break at the very start, because it was in the very first Olympics in 96, if I remember correctly, like 1896. And it's been in the Olympics ever since. That was because of nationalism and all the revolutions of the 1800s and all that. So they kind of got a free pass in, because they were all military based anyway. So they were in a right spot, right time. But they've been just steadily increasing over time. And I still think that gymnastics, at least female gymnastics, is one of the top rated sports on when the Olympics comes on. It's one of the top best ratings. Where has snowboarding increased its ratings, or has it just kind of been the same, or what's going on with that?
I think like snowboard halfpipe in the Olympics has always been a pretty special event. People love to see it. Also, snowboard slopestyle and big air were events where people love to watch. That's actually pretty cool. That not only the core scene, but also the people out there who don't really know much about snowboarding are getting excited about what's going on in our sport. So I think it's becoming more popular. Also, like now that it's Olympic, lots of people are complaining about the fact that it became Olympic in every discipline. But I think it's a good thing that people actually know there are snowboarders, there is a scene, and these are the guys I want to follow maybe. So I want to be like them. There's lots of kids watching, and like a big opportunity for kids to see us doing our snowboarding tricks and to find that a cool thing. So I think it's becoming better the more snowboarding events are being hosted by the Olympic Winter Games. Even though there are some things that are not too good about the fact that it's all Olympic, but definitely it makes sense to have Olympic disciplines in our sport for new kids coming up snowboarding and trying to find the best life they could ever imagine because they snowboard.
What are people saying against the Olympics? Why wouldn't they want in the Olympics? It's more fame, more money, more sponsors, more growth, more everything. What would they not like about that?
It's because of people think that the FIS is trying to control everything, and it is like a system, an old grown system that doesn't really fit into doesn't fit with the
mentality, the new up and coming.
Like with the freestyle mentality. It's like freestyle trampolining and how do you say it?
We have the FIG, Federation
traditional, like freestyle trampolining and traditional trampolining.
Yeah, they just don't.
Like it doesn't. They just don't match, and that's like where the war began. That they had to, because the FIS was coming into the scene, and people were like fighting against it, and they were fighting, and always like they were like two different sides. The ones were there, the other ones were there, and always nobody was doing both. And there was like it was split. The whole scene was split at that time. And because some people were like, okay, yeah, it's probably pretty good that the FIS is coming, and we have more people watching actually, and they probably gonna do something good to our scene. And some people were like trying to avoid that, and we want to keep it the way it was all the time. Some people are saying FIS destroyed the whole snowboarding image and the whole snowboarding scene. Some people say the scene destroyed itself or the industry. I don't know. I don't want to say anything about that. But
oh, come on, those are the juicy questions. Huh? Those are the juicy questions. When did the whole thing happen with the FIS coming in, and when did snowboarding even get into the Olympics anyway?
Like, all things started like a couple of years back. Like, I mean, it was happening when I was a little snowboarder, like a little kid already. And so I grew into that, and I didn't really know what exactly the fight started, because I was like, as I said, I was a little kid. And but I think what was actually the worst thing that could have happened to the snowboarding industry is that the whole scene was split into halves. That people inside the scene were actually fighting against each other about their opinions, about whatever they think about the whole situation, instead of just working all together and finding a good solution for everybody, and looking into the future to work together and find something that works, that just works, and keep the industry strong. And that's where mistakes were made, probably.
And would you say that's just simply the one half was, like you said, keep it to its roots, and we just want to snowboard for fun, very little competitions, more meetups and gatherings and stuff, and just kind of flowing for fun with the camera with your buddies and a few beers, versus the other guys are saying, well, I want to get brand endorsements, I want to compete, I have a more of a competitive sort of edge to my board, in, you know, matter of speaking.
Well, there were lots of competitions, and lots of big competitions.
Okay.
Before the FIS came in, the FIS just came in, wanted to take a little, a part of, like a piece of the cake, and just also do it, like also do events and stuff, and take some control. And that's what didn't
really it wasn't like
work for everybody.
So you didn't really need the FIS. You already had your own version of it. You were already pretty systematically doing well. They basically came in and said, well, we have the Olympic committee, so we're going to come in and use that to grab a chunk of this to increase our profits. We don't care about you snowboarders. We just care about keeping the Olympic committee happy. Was that?
Like they wanted to, as they were talking about the Olympic, like about the results and the competitions you have to do, or to qualify for the Olympics, like all the qualifyings that are going down. There was a big fight about the World Snowboard Tour and the FIS. And because World Snowboard Tour has always been there, and before the FIS already, and this was the thing, but the FIS wanted to do the Olympic qualifiers, of course, and so they were fighting about that. And also people were fighting about that. Some people saw a future in there. Lots of people thought this would be the end, because World Snowboard Tour is the core scene actually, and the FIS isn't, and it's just some skiers doing their thing, like their structured thing, and they are not freestyle at all. And that's what split it, the people. So they came in and wanted to do the qualifiers on their own, because they have the Olympic committee, and it's not the World Snowboard Tour who is in charge of that. And people were fighting about that. And
it was just money.
Course,
it was just, I'm coming in, I got the Olympic committee in my back pocket, so I'm going to basically grab onto this new industry that's already good, they're already thriving, and I'm just going to take their money, basically, is what happened.
In the end, it was just about money. Yeah.
And we had the same problem just recently. I don't know if you know, but parkour now is going into the Olympics, and that's through our.
Really?
Huh?
That's cool.
Well, it's exactly what you're talking about, you know, and there was a huge fight, petitions going out saying parkour is not traditional. You can't put us into a box. But then the other half were saying, well, yeah, but that does make our sport officially a sport. And, you know, everyone still wants to be an Olympic champion at the end of the day, you know, so you had the exact same fighting happening, and it has somewhat split the industry down the middle, the ones that are just doing for social media at the end of the day, and they go and do their flips outside and stuff, and they're just, if they get 1 million views, they get, you know, a couple $1,000s through YouTube ads, and that's how they get paid. Then the other ones say, no, I'm going to compete so I can name myself a real athlete, and these two don't necessarily mesh too well. We're seeing
I can see that.
We're trying to make our whole freestyle trampoline not have that problem. You know, we're trying to see, like, look, we need a bit of structure, guys. And it's like what we've done. You guys have your world snowboarding tour. We have a little tour like the GT Games and Freestyle Frenzy and stuff like that all throughout the year. And that is literally the only competitions that are structured and repeating. But we also know that down in the future, if this whole freestyle thing really takes off, there's going to be a big boy that comes in, somebody, and is going to try to either grab a big piece of it for themselves. And we're trying to make sure we stack the deck in the right way so that we can work with these people, because we know that we're not going to outmuscle them. But we also know that if they come in, they could cut the industry in half as well, like we're already seeing, which just hurts them as well.
And in snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing, now parkour.
Everything. It's just a repeating pattern, and we don't want to fall into that trap. So we'd rather get ahead of it, and basically we tell these athletes that, you have to learn stuff. You have to have education. You need a bit of a structure. We won't tell you where to drive, but we are going to give you the tools on how to use your car. And that's about the most we're going to do for education. We're going to create this really cool program that they can, self-administer in a sense, but they decide how much they take out of it, how much they use it. We won't cram it down their throats, because I don't think that's good for anybody.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good plan to be. It's a good plan to be to know what could possibly come, and be prepared for everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are ill prepared for stuff like this, where they just kind of their head's so focused in the immediate that they don't get into the future to say, well, what if this happens? What if every freestyler dies? Do we have a contingency for that? What if we get bought out by some big company? What if we end up getting so much competition where all these other companies do their own thing and we just basically get squeezed out of our own market? We have to think about all these different things as we build this community. These are things that the kids don't have to worry about. They just need to show up at the event and not die, basically, and not bully each other online. If they can just do that, and the parents can help by getting them there, we can fix the structure of all the rest and help keep everyone moving. But this is where what we've done is 2 different circuits. We have the Freestyle Frenzy, which is more big branding, competitions, bigger money, more pressure, more, all that work stuff that a lot of kids don't want to do, but there's definitely a bunch that do want that. So we make that circuit for them. But then we have GT Games over here, which is more just chill, family vibes, friends hanging out, little challenges, little mini competition, but it's called GT Games for a reason, not because we are so focused on that. We just need a bit of structure, and we're finding that they're kind of naturally going in both directions, and we're allowed.
That's very, very, very good plan.
It seems to be working. Again, we don't have hindsight on our side yet, but in 10 years we'll find out if it was the right plan. And
you still have both in your own hands. That means, like nobody could say, hey, but I'm the guy who's in charge to organize all the things, and now you're using my concept because you don't have that. You are the one who's having all that stuff in his hands, and it's already made, and it's a perfect opportunity for whoever comes and wants to take the piece of the cake to just take yours, and you're still in charge of that, of both, because you've built it already. It's there.
Well, that's the thing. We're not so worried about getting flashy and getting all out there and going hoorah, hoorah. We're just thinking about the underlying structure. It's like when you do snowboard training, you got to go do the drills. You got to learn how to ride the board first before you go up the biggest mountain. There's going to be sponsors in the future, like you said earlier. There's always going to be brands. There's always going to be people that when a market grows, that they want a piece of it. So we just want to make sure that we grow it in all the different aspects, from education, from the actual competitions to content and sponsor, agencies, and getting the athletes out there helping build the system themselves are much more important than, getting a bigger event tomorrow. That will come naturally. It's all the stuff that people don't see that really is the most important part, is that the culture that we have to create way before anything else happens. So,
yeah, agree, definitely.
Yep. Well, that's awesome, man. Awesome. That's great. We're going to end our show with that great positive note. I want to thank you for coming on and letting us know what's going on in your mind while you're doing your stuff. So thank you so much again, André. And we'll make sure you have you back on the show, hopefully sometime at the end of the season. And we want to get into talking a little bit more about actual snowboard history. Maybe we'll bring in some of your coaches and go from there.
Sounds awesome. I'm always glad to come back to the show and talk to you.
Perfect. Thanks, André. We'll see you next time. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a few things. There's a big world out there worth exploring, and I'm happy to be able to bring these great experiences right to you through this podcast.
If you enjoyed this podcast and learned something, please share and take a screen grab of our funky cartoons and hashtag GRT Certified for a chance to win a shout out to our community. Also, please leave us a review to be part of helping this information get out into the industry. It's much appreciated. Along with these podcasts, we have a large online content hub that we call the GRT Network, with many other interviews and full tutorials and written content discussing everything about acrobatics. We will be constantly growing this archive of videos like a cross between Netflix and Wikipedia for anyone in the acrobatic industry. We also have a complete online educational program for athletes of all levels that provides a do-it-yourself pathway to success for any acrobat. Check out our constantly growing library of playlists that will teach you anything from tightening up your social media, to how to get around fear, to even learning all the biology that underlies all your acrobatic skills. We work very hard with our team around the world to provide this exclusive content for you and appreciate any donations made to the FTA to help keep these episodes coming at you. And if you want all the content, become a GRT Network full member to get exclusive content before everyone else and access to special discounts and giveaways through our amazing global partners. Thanks guys, see you next episode.